Hello friends, my name is Philip and I'm an environment artist. Today let me show you some of the key shortcuts I took to make this Mars-inspired environment in Unreal Engine with the help of Polygonflow tools. Automating the process of creating leaves and scattering assets with sliders really made it more enjoyable to build the scene and saved a lot of time. It also allowed me to bypass some of the most difficult tasks, like cutting out leaves manually from an atlas, which is really helpful if you're a beginner or just want to be more effective. So I have this simple scene ready to work with, and I have prepared a couple of models that I will scatter on my landscape. First of all, I will work with the AlphaCut tool, since I want to scatter leaves under the tree to imitate fallen leaves. I have an atlas card for these leaves, but I don't want to manually cut out each leaf separately from the atlas. And in this case, AlphaCut is the best tool ever for creating these separate cards in seconds. So once GraphN is installed and I click on its button on the toolbar, I go to the Tools library and choose an AlphaCut tool. I will rename it so everything is organized in my scene. It is very important to prepare a material for our AlphaCut. GraphN will use this material on our atlas and on each separate leaf. GraphN is smart enough to take atlas of the leaves, cut out white color from an opacity mask and use it all together to create separate leaves with individual material on them. Don't forget to specify opacity mask in your material setup, so it will be able to create correct edges of your leaves. For creating separate cards, I just need to go to an opacity mask of the atlas that is stored on my computer. And then I will apply prepared material so GraphN can use it on each leaf card. Cutouts always appear in 0 coordinates, so always check them there. You can always change parameters in order to see what they are doing. For some scenes, you will have to change orientation of cutouts, for example, for vertical or horizontal surfaces. And for better access to all scattered objects, I always create scene tags to quickly navigate to them. First, I choose meshes that I want to scatter, then I go to Scene Tags window and create new scene tag. Then I press plus button and now I have an easy access to my leaves with one click. And for scattering leaves under the tree, I will use a surface scattering instrument. I will go to Tools library and choose Surface Scattering. As you can understand from its name, it will distribute my mesh on my landscape or on other meshes. GraphN is very user-friendly and you can easily understand what you should do in order to get your result. First, I choose a rock and press plus button, so the GraphN will understand that leaves must be scattered on this particular asset. Then I right-click on the Scatter Meshes menu and add my prepared scene tag. This is why scene tags are very useful. You quickly navigate to scatter meshes without manually selecting them. And now I will change density parameter and play with scale parameters in order to match these leaves with the one that are on the tree right now. And I also want the leaves to lay on the ground, but not too far from the main tree. For this purpose, I will create a new surface scatter tool. As in the previous stage, I will choose my landscape as a mesh for scattering on, and I will add my scene tag with leaves again. I add my rock to proximity masking and click on invert button, so the leaves will be distributed near the rock. Then I will increase density, and if it's not enough, I will also increase max amount of scattered objects. I will also adjust a couple of parameters for a better result. Don't be afraid to play with these parameters, since GraphN allows you to easily return to a previous step. I also want to add some plants everywhere in my landscape. For this purpose, I will use the surface scattering again. I will rename it for a better organize, and I will choose my landscape in the viewport and add it to a surface mesh menu. I also right-click on the scatter meshes and add my tag with the plant. And I see how immediately flowers appeared in my scene. But I'm not satisfied how they are distributed, so I have to change a couple of parameters. And first of them is a density. I will increase the density parameter. And in case of it is not enough, sometimes it happens when landscape is very big, I will increase max count in misc settings, and it will add more plants to my scene. I will also play with the scale parameter since I don't like its current size. And I encourage you to play with each parameter in order to see what function does it have. My plants are everywhere on the landscape, but it will cost a GPU performance. Since I don't need them to be behind my main view, I will make plants to grow around these huge rocks, right around the main part of the scene. I choose my rocks and add them to a proximity object menu. Then I click on invert, and I can see how my plants start growing only around chosen rocks. I will increase proximity distance, so the plants will grow on bigger distances from the big rocks. Now, when I'm okay with the plants, I want to add smaller rocks around my landscape, and it will add more natural look to the ground and to the environment. So, of course, I will use surface scatter again, and I choose my landscape and add it as a mesh for scattering on. And I have prepared scene tags with different rocks and stones, and I yet correct scene tag and see how immediately rocks showed up on my landscape. But now it looks like there are too many of these stones, and I'm not happy with their scale and rotational pattern. So I will change parameters of scale, sync, and rotational jitter in misc settings, and this way I will make distribution more natural and random. Now I want to add smaller stones as a final touch for the ground, because it is natural way of how stones distribute in the real world. I'm going to imitate an erosion. I want these stones to be mostly around these big rocks, so we will imitate the process of erosion, like when the size of the stones changes depending on the distance to the original piece where it came from. I will go to proximity masking. I will choose my big cliffs and will add them to my proximity objects and invert it. It is time to play with the density and proximity distance, and I also make stones sink a little bit in the ground and will randomize distribution by random remove parameter. As you can understand, it will randomly remove some percentage of the stones, which will add more natural look to our ground. And time came to add Martian moss on stone around the tree, and we are going to use one of the most interesting tools in GraphN Library. It is called Moss Builder. Moss will grow on this rock, so of course I choose this rock in the viewport and add it to a surface mesh. And I also have prepared a moss tag. So once I click on it, it will load my moss mesh. I prefer to use this model in this project. I like the way it looks. But it is up to you. You can use whatever mesh you want with this instrument. First of all, as usual, I changed the density parameter. And I adjust max angle parameter, which controls at what exactly angle my moss will grow on. I changed this parameter to 45, and you can see how the moss disappears from sharp angles. Notice how quickly you achieve results that would take you a lot of time of manually painting the foliage. Also, I need to change scale parameter because I want my moss to be smaller. And now I have to increase density to fill the gaps between the moss. I also changed random cutoff value to make distribution randomized. And this simple, my moss is ready.
Thank you for watching. You can try these tools today by going to polygonflow.io and download a free trial. You can also head to the Polygonflow Discord in the link below if you have any further questions or comments.